I know that the 2024 NHL trade deadline is like 5 months away. Heck, the start of the regular season is still a little under a month away, but if you ask me, it is never too early to start talking about trades, and I feel like there's quite a few big name players that a lot of us expected to be moved at some point this summer that haven't been traded yet. So in this video, I want to go over a list of not just NHL players, but NHL stars that I feel like there's a good chance we could see them traded at some point between now and the trade deadline in March. As always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, so if there's anybody that you feel like I missed, let me know who those players are and why down below in the comments. And if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button. We're getting super close to 75,000. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and get this video started with Noah Hanifin, defenseman for the Calgary Flames. The Flames have had a much quieter offseason than I feel like a lot of us expected. If you guys remember, back in late May, Frank Seravalli dropped 3 bombs all within like the same hour of each other, reporting that Elias Lindholm is leaning towards not re-signing in Calgary, Noah Hanifin doesn't want to sign an extension with the Flames, and also maybe Michael Backlund is leaning towards not re-signing in Calgary either. And shortly after all of that news came out, Frank Seravalli also reported that Tyler Toffoli did not plan on re-signing in Calgary, and of all the players that I just mentioned, of course Tyler Toffoli has been the only one traded so far. Now since then, Lindholm has actually came out and indicated that he may be open to signing an extension with the Flames, so the Flames are currently working on getting Lindholm signed. But when it comes to Noah Hanifin, the latest we know is that Hanifin does not plan on signing an extension with the Calgary Flames and is of course heading into the final year of his contract. Over the past 2 seasons, Noah Hanifin has blossomed into a legit top pairing defenseman for the Calgary Flames. He's been fantastic, playing big minutes. This past season averaged over 22.5 a game. His point totals are up. These past 2 seasons have been his 2 highest scoring seasons in his career, with 48 points in 21-22 and then 38 points this past season. Hanifin has been putting up fantastic results at both ends of the ice, killing penalties. He's a do-it-all defenseman, and at a cap hit of just $4.95 million, in terms of defensemen, you have to think Noah Hanifin is one of the most attractive rental options on the market. Now that being said, the Calgary Flames are a team that haven't really indicated that they're going to be tearing it down completely and rebuilding. This is a team that has playoff aspirations heading into the 2023-24 season, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that maybe they keep Noah Hanifin as their own rental. But to me, given where the Calgary Flames are at, I think that would be a massive mistake, risking losing somebody as valuable as Noah Hanifin for nothing in free agency, especially when you could get such a massive return for him if you go the route of trading him. Moving along now to the next player on my list, we have Evgeny Kuznetsov, centerman for the Washington Capitals. Kuznetsov is a guy that reportedly has asked for a trade out of Washington in the past, and as the Capitals showed everybody at the most recent deadline, they're not going to be afraid to move on from veteran players if they don't view themselves as a legit threat. I think everybody knows that the Capitals could probably benefit from getting a little bit younger. I feel like the Capitals themselves realized that, as when they traded the likes of Orlov and Hathaway, they then used assets acquired in those trades to flip and get somebody like Rasmus Sandin, who's a young defenseman that can be a part of the Washington Capitals' future, but is also somebody that can help them win now and contribute right away. When it comes to Evgeny Kuznetsov, he's coming off of a disappointing season, just 12 goals and 55 points in 81 games, which is the lowest points per game total he's put up in a single season since he was a rookie back in 2014-15. Now, coupling that with the fact that Kuznetsov still has 2 years left on his deal that carries a cap hit of $7.8 million a season, and he has a 15-team no-trade list, this may not be that easy of a player to move right now. The Capitals would certainly have to be willing to retain some salary if they wanted to get that sizable of a return for Kuznetsov, but based on his reputation, this is a guy who has been very productive playing a top 6 center role in the past. He's somebody who had a legit case to win the Conn Smythe Trophy in 2018 when the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup. I definitely think there would be a handful of teams out there willing to take a flyer on Evgeny Kuznetsov at the right price for the remaining years of his deal. The next player on my list is Connor Hellebuck, goaltender of the Winnipeg Jets. Similar to what I said earlier on in the video regarding the Calgary Flames and how everybody expected them to have such a busy offseason, I think a lot of us expected the Winnipeg Jets to have a really busy offseason too. And while the Jets did make one really big splash moving Pierre-Luc Dubois to the Los Angeles Kings, things have been really quiet regarding Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck, who are both heading into the final season of their contract. Now, a couple of days ago on the 32 Thoughts podcast hosted by Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman did give us a little bit of an update on Connor Hellebuck. Friedman said the one thing I heard interesting about Hellebuck is I've heard that there's going to be a conversation between Hellebuck and the Jets whenever he gets there, meaning when he gets to Winnipeg to, to start getting ready for training camp and all that stuff. Friedman went on to say, and the one thing somebody told me is, as the summer has progressed, there seems to be some thought that it is not impossible that Hellebuck could stay there. Friedman also later added that he's been told that the word on Hellebuck is he has an open mind and he's prepared to just listen to the Jets and what they're thinking. So what that sounds like to me is just Connor Hellebuck hasn't completely shut the door on re-signing with Winnipeg. I'd love to hear what Jets fans have to say on this, but to me as somebody from the outside looking in, it looks like the Jets really want to shake up that core and head in a younger direction. They bought out Blake Wheeler, brought in the likes of Velarde and Kupari in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. Does it make sense for the Winnipeg Jets and where they're at right now as an organization to sign a 30-year-old Connor Hellebuck to an extension that would likely have to be in the range of 6 to 8 years and would probably make Hellebuck one of the highest paid goaltenders in the league based off of his resume up until this point? I know goaltenders the caliber of Hellebuck who are as consistently good as he is are very hard to come by. This is a guy who's basically been a perennial Vezina Trophy candidate for the Winnipeg Jets ever since becoming a full-time starter back in 2017, but I really wonder if it would be more beneficial for the Winnipeg Jets to cash in on his value right now with Connor Hellebuck at his peak in his absolute prime and get a massive haul for him via trade and continue the process of moving out players from the Jets core that have been there for so long and continue to rebuild the identity of this team as opposed to sign Hellebuck to a massive extension. And really none of that conversation matters if Hellebuck doesn't want to resign. If he doesn't want to resign, then the Jets' hand is pretty much forced and they gotta move on from him, or they could lose him for nothing, which would set the franchise back years. Moving along now to the next player on my list, we have Brett Pesci, defenseman for the Carolina Hurricanes. Brett Pesci is another guy who's heading into the final season of his contract, has a cap hit of just $4.025 million, which is an absolute bargain for the kind of defender Brett Pesci is. This is a legit top 4 right shot defenseman with an extremely well-rounded game who has consistently been one of the most reliable defenders on the Hurricanes for a very long time now. And you might be thinking, well, why would the Hurricanes entertain the idea of trading somebody like Brett Pesci given the fact that the Hurricanes are a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, even though Pesci is heading into the final year of his contract and is due for what will probably be a pretty sizable raise? Wouldn't it make sense for the Carolina Hurricanes and where they're at right now to just hold on to Brett Pesci? Well, the reason I think that they should go down the route of trading him is because he's really expendable. Even though he is a fantastic top 4 defender, the Carolina Hurricanes have a lot of depth on the right side, including the likes of Brent Burns, Tony DeAngelo, Caleb Jones can play both the left and the right side, and also Jalen Chatfield. And over the past 3-4 seasons, the Carolina Hurricanes have notoriously been a fantastic defensive team. That's not what's keeping them from getting over the hump in the playoffs, it's offense. Although the Hurricanes made it to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, their leading scorer in the playoffs was Jordan Martinook, and no disrespect to Martinook, but that's not cutting it. To me, the Hurricanes are still missing at least one top-end offensive talent, somebody who's capable of driving their own line. I think it would make a lot of sense to see what's out there for Brett Pesci in terms of forwards. Something that a lot of people have been throwing out there is the idea of some type of William Nylander for Brett Pesci trade. Obviously, the Hurricanes would probably have to add a significant amount along with Brett Pesci to get a trade like that done, but there could be something there, or it doesn't have to be Nylander, just some type of trade like that. Brett Pesci, plus for a top-line forward. If the Hurricanes do go the route of trading Brett Pesci, it's not just going to be for draft picks and prospects, future assets. That wouldn't make sense for the Hurricanes and where they're at. Moving along now to the next player on the list, we have Travis Konecny of the Philadelphia Flyers. Since becoming general manager, Danny Briere has not been shy to move out pieces and really kickstart this rebuild. We saw it with the Kevin Hayes trade, the Ivan Provorov trade, buying out Tony DeAngelo. The Philadelphia Flyers finally have a GM that is fully embracing a rebuild, which is going to be extremely beneficial for the organization in the long term. I am very curious to see what happens with somebody like a Travis Konecny who's coming off of a career year, 31 goals, 61 points in just 60 games. He's got 2 years left on his deal that has a very team-friendly cap hit of just $5.5 million. Travis Konechny's value has to be at an all-time high right now, and given the demand for players with a unique skill set like Travis Konechny, who has that scoring touch but also plays with a ton of bite and is an agitator, you have to imagine that there's already been at least a handful of teams reaching out to Danny Briere and the Philadelphia Flyers to see if Konechny is available. The Flyers can really go one of two ways with this. They could sign Konechny to an extension, make him the captain, and have him be that veteran presence that sees the rebuild through and is the locker room leader, or they could cash in on his value, which, like I said, has to be at an all-time high. I'd be really interested to hear what Flyers fans think about this, so if you're a Flyers fan, sound off down below in the comments. What do you think should happen with Konecny? No doubt about it though, if the Flyers do go the route of trading Travis Konecny, somebody at his age with his skill set on such a team-friendly deal, he would fetch the Flyers a massive haul. Continuing on now, the next player on the list is Mark Scheifele of the Winnipeg Jets, who, along with Connor Hellebuck, is the other really big story coming out of Winnipeg heading into the season. I mentioned earlier in the video when talking about Connor Hellebuck how Elliotte Friedman gave everybody a little bit of an update on the Hellebuck situation in one of the most recent 32 Thoughts episodes. Friedman also said in that episode that things are a lot more unclear in regards to Mark Scheifele and his willingness to sign an extension and what the future holds for him. Mark Scheifele has been the Winnipeg Jets' #1 center pretty much ever since becoming a full-time NHLer. He's a guy who has 8 20-plus goal seasons. He's coming off of a year in which he put up a career-high 42 goals in 81 games. He's been a guy that's consistently been at or around a point per game for the Winnipeg Jets year in and year out for a long time. For the past couple of seasons, there has been a lot of question about Scheifele's willingness to buy into a 200-foot game, along with many other forwards on the Winnipeg Jets, guys who have since been moved out like a Pierre-Luc Dubois and like a Blake Wheeler. If the Jets are really serious about changing the identity of this team, I think Mark Scheifele is somebody that you have to look to trade. He's heading into the final year of his contract that has a cap hit of just $6.125 million. He is a very movable player. That is a cheap cap hit for a top 6 center, a top line center really in Scheifele's case. Scheifele is also 30 years old, and like I mentioned earlier when talking about Hellebuck, does it make sense for the Jets to sign somebody like Scheifele at that age to an extension that'll likely have to be in the range of 6 to 8 years and carry a much bigger cap hit than $6.125 million? This is a guy that's probably going to be looking for something in the range of 9. Friedman did also say on the 32 Thoughts podcast that I keep bringing up how the Winnipeg Jets want to remain competitive. They're not entering a full-fledged rebuild, and Cheveldayoff has said if they go from, Dubois and Scheifele to having neither of those guys, there's going to have to be somebody that comes in to replace one of them as a top 6 center. So if Scheifele is moved, expect a center coming back to Winnipeg in that package. And now for the final player that we're going to talk about in today's video, William Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who I feel like is really the big X factor when it comes to trade candidates heading into this season, because if he is made available by the Toronto Maple Leafs, he's easily going to be the biggest player on the market. William Nylander is coming off of a career year in which he scored 40 goals and put up 87 points in 82 games. The whole reason why the trade speculation has started surrounding William Nylander is because of the fact that he's heading into the final season of his deal and what his reported asking price is on an extension. It just doesn't seem feasible for the Maple Leafs to give Nylander 10 mil plus on an extension while already paying Mitch Marner 10 mil plus and also Austin Matthews. And then of course Matthews will be 13 million plus starting next season. Now, despite the fact that William Nylander is a fantastic player and would probably be the best forward on a lot of teams in the NHL, while he's kind of overshadowed in Toronto by the likes of Matthews and Marner, a Nylander trade probably would not be the easiest thing to pull off, as you have to find a trade partner that has the kind of cap space to sign Nylander to an extension after a trade is completed, because I don't think there's going to be a team out there willing to give up what Toronto would probably be asking for in a return for just Nylander as a rental. This is another situation similar to what I said about the Hurricanes and what they would be looking for when trading Brett Pesci. You have to imagine the Leafs would be wanting someone that can help them win now. They're not going to be looking for a huge package of draft picks and prospects. This is a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, and if you trade Nylander for picks and prospects, your chances of winning a Stanley Cup go down. It's going to be a blockbuster trade. In a perfect world, I'm sure the Leafs would like to re-sign Nylander, but again, given their cap situation, I just don't think it's really possible for them to do that and still have the kind of money to build a good team around their core players. And as far as the Leafs just holding on to Nylander and letting him walk to unrestricted free agency, that would just be a ludicrous decision. He is way too good of a player to risk losing for nothing. I'm fascinated to see what happens with this whole situation. If the trade deadline comes and goes and Nylander is still a Maple Leaf and doesn't have an extension, I would probably be panicking a little bit if I was a Leafs fan. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Those were 7 star NHL players that I feel like we could see traded at some point between now and the trade deadline in March. Again, like I said at the beginning, I want to know what you guys are thinking, so if you feel like I missed anybody, let me know who those players are down below in the comments and why. If you guys enjoyed the video today, please be sure to leave it a like. That is the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this was your first time coming across the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.